Hello, it's noon on Friday, 23rd December. On today's edition, I speak to Captain RAGESHWARAN, head of the Civil Defence Special Force Unit, better known as PASPA, the Disaster Management and Operation Division of APM. We'll find out more about that later. We'll be talking about their work at Batang Kali. But before that, though, Dr. KHAIRUL ANUAR from USIM joins me to talk about how they handle or dealt with the trauma during the landslide. I'm Gerard, Ratnam, coming to you live in Kuala Lumpur. You're watching The Brief on Bernama TV. Good afternoon, ladies, and thanks for staying with us. We begin the news in brief with this. The search for the last victim in the landslide tragedy campsite in Batang Kali resumed this morning. The search for the boy, which entered the 8th day today, started at about 8 a.m. with the rescue team assisted by 6 dogs from the Tracker Dog Unit, or K9, and assets from various agencies. Now, the police confirm the official actual number of victims involved in the incident. The exact number is 92 and not 94 as previously reported. Once again, I repeat, it is 92 but not 94. The new figure was obtained after several rounds of verification based on information and reports from various parties, including family members of the victims. Now, meanwhile, Sarawak and Selangor today became the latest states to be struck by the floods, requiring 5 relief centres, better known as PPS in Bahasa Melayu, to be open as of 8 a.m. Now, Perak saw an increase in the number of flood evacuees this morning, but Terengganu and Kelantan recorded a downward trend, while the situation remained unchanged in Pahang and Johor. In another development, a selective tendering process will enable the government to save 1.8 billion ringgit in the flood mitigation project, or RTB project. According to the PM, the 15 billion allocated for the RTB project through direct negotiation without a tender process has caused the overall cost of the project to soar. The Ministry of Finance has been asked to renegotiate with the companies involved through selective tendering. Now, moving on, projects that have been awarded a letter of acceptance, or SST, will not be cancelled even if they were done via direct negotiations. Now, Transport Minister Anthony Lok says that it is an existing government policy and gave assurance that important and critical projects that require immediate action will not be cancelled. Again, if you're working in the media, here's a message for you. Media agencies in the country need to play their roles to fight the spread of fake news and hate speech to ensure the harmony in the country is preserved. Deputy Communications and Digital Minister Teoni Ching says, based on the current development, especially with the increasing usage of social media, the matter should be given attention by the media, or people like us, by delivering only verified and accurate information. Now, our first guest today, Dr. KHAIRUL ANUAR RAHIMI, the head of Counselling program from USIM, talks about trauma in Batang Kali and the floods. How do you help individuals and families cope? Doc, thank you very much for taking time off to be with us. It's been a horrifying month for most of us in Malaysia, and as I move into celebrate Christmas with my family and also New Year with the rest of the country, some of us don't feel like celebrating it. Some people are having prayers for those who've been out there doing work, helping the families, and also looking for victims, or looking for survivors in this horrible tragedy. There's so much for us to deal with at this point. Now, how do you help individuals and families cope with the emotional and psychological impact of such a devastating impact? Maybe you can walk us through this.
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me. I think it has been a very difficult time for most of us Malaysians, especially with what has happened, throughout the past few weeks. So sometimes disasters happen, with little to no warning. So in an instant, your life will be changed forever. After a disaster, such as that happened in Batang Kali, it is common to experience a wide range of reactions, including changes in your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. So from an individual and also family's perspective, the first thing that individual can do is that what we can do is that we can help them to talk about it. So by talking about with others about the event, they can relieve stress and anxiety, and also realize that others also share sort of similar feelings. But if you do not have an individual who you feel you can safely share some, all these things with, maybe what you can do is also talk to a counselor. So when you talk to a counselor, they'll be non-judgmental. They'll be listening to everything that you say, without any, any negative, connotations or whatever. Okay, so I would highly encourage those who have gone through this experiences to go and see and or talk to a counselor.
Right.
The other thing that they can do is so they can,
Sorry for cutting in there, but let's say you want to help people, support people who may be experiencing symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder, better known as PTSD, or other mental health challenges in the aftermath of disaster. What happens first? Now, everyone talks a lot about psychological first aid. Everyone needs to go learn this, so on and so forth. So how do you begin by helping them? What do you do when they're sitting down there crying, or just sad, or just withdrawn? What do you do first?
The first thing that you can do, especially related to PFA, is just to be a good listener. So a person with PTSD may need to talk about the traumatic event over and over again. So it's not just a one-time thing. It takes time for you to get over things that is very highly traumatic for you. So this is part of the healing process. So to avoid the temptation to tell loved one to, instead of telling them to, avoid temptation to, stop rehashing the past and move on, what we can do is that we can just lend them a helping ear, so that we'll be able to kind of just listen to them without any disapproval or whatnot. So if you come across as maybe disapproving, maybe horrified or judgmental, then they may be more unlikely to open up to you again. So another thing that you can do is also just to provide social support. So it is common for people, with PTSD to withdraw from family and friends. They may feel ashamed, they may not want to burden others or believe that other people won't understand what they're going through. So why it's important to respect, or for you to respect their boundaries, your comfort and support can also help them to overcome, feelings of helplessness, grief, and also despair. So, those are just some of the vital things that's very important in order for us to help people who are going through all of this. Sometimes it's difficult, right, to provide those social support because they may go through all these different feelings and emotions. But it's highly vital for us to always be there for them at all times.
Mm-hmm. Now, being humans, we always forget, say in a couple of weeks' time, when people are still, some people will still be grieving, and some will say, they need to learn to start moving on, things like that. Some of us need things to move quickly, some of us can't. So we need to help them find coping mechanisms, something that will help them, just find a string in through the future to pull themselves forward. How do we do that? Or can that be done?
Mm-hmm. When we talk about coping mechanism, it's all about resiliency. So resiliency is something that can be built up. Of course, people have different types of or levels of resiliency. For example, it may be because of personal characteristics, such as having some people have more positive temperament. Okay, it depends on their personality. Some are much more sociable. Some have higher optimism levels, and also some have higher internal levels of locus of control. So some of these characteristics may represent, personality characteristics that can be difficult to change. However, according to research, it has been found that resiliency can be optimized by strengthening maybe what we call protective factors. There are 3 levels of protective factors. So the first one is based on the individual. So you talk about their ability to have control over their thinking or their cognitive ability. It goes back to self-efficacy, self-regulation, and also coping strategies. So when you talk about coping strategies, it's all about finding what your interests are. What do you like to do? Okay, so it's more about finding out more about yourself, so that you'll be able to do things that you like to do, so that you'll be able to cope with going through disasters much better. Second one is family. Okay, so it's very important for us to support each other when you're going through a disaster within the family itself. So we talk about being supportive when it comes to parent-child interactions, and also support among the family members themselves. And then finally, we talk about the community. So for example, when you go back to school for the children, they have positive school experiences. Okay, so their friends are very supportive, the teachers are very supportive, and we also tend to talk about a little bit about community resources. Okay, so where can I find help within the community itself? So I would say that when it comes to resiliency or coping strategies, individual, family, and community plays a very vital role.
Mm-hmm. Now, I've got 40 seconds left. We're about to take a commercial, but I want to ask you this question. What would be your message in 40 seconds to all of us in Malaysia? We've been through a horrible year, all of us, all 37 million of us. Now, what would be your message as a counsellor to Malaysia as we bring the year to a close?
I would say two things. Number one is take time for self-love and self-care, because being able to take good care of your body and mind is very, very vital, so that we'll be able to go through difficult times in our life. And the second one would be to always remember that the past does not define you, because sometimes we feel like you want to go back to the past and change it. In reality, we cannot do it. So I would say those two things are very, very vital in order for us to cope with disasters happening.
Doc, thank you so much for this. Dr. Muhammad KHAIRUL Anwar Rahimi, Head of Counselling or the Counselling Program at USIM, joining us to talk about how to deal with trauma. Thank you very much for staying with us on The Brief. I'm off to a break. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about handling the events on site, especially at Batang Kali, or where the landslide happened. That and more coming your way right here on The Brief shortly. Stay with us. Thank you for staying with us right here on The Brief. Welcome back. The ringgit retreated from yesterday's gains to open low against the US dollar on Friday due to the lack of interest in the local currency as the greenback strengthened on the possibility of another interest rate hike by the United States Federal Reserve. At 9:05 a.m., one US dollar was 4 ringgit and 43 sen. Now, moving on, according to an analyst, Bursa Malaysia opened slightly higher today but retreated within minutes, taking its cue from Wall Street, which tumbled overnight on concerns over more rate hikes following the strong economic showing in the United States. At 9:15 a.m., the benchmark FBM KLTI fell by 0.33% or 4.86 points to 1,463.49 from Thursday's close of 1,468.35. Briefly, gold is 247 ringgit and 24 sen per gram, down 3 ringgit and 2 sen from 250 ringgit 26 sen at yesterday's close. Now, in other trending business stories, local authorities or PBT, especially in urban areas, need to provide comfortable infrastructure and facilities for hawkers and petty traders to conduct business in a conducive environment. According to the PM, the group should be given assistance as they also are contributors to the national economy. In international business, Wall Street's major averages closed sharply low on Thursday, with technology-heavy Nasdaq leading declines amid investors' worries that data showing a resilient economy would lead the U.S. Federal Reserve to keep hiking interest rates for longer than feared. Micron Technology Incorporated's glum forecast adds to the downbeat mood and caused the semiconductor index to sharply underperform the broader market. At this time, I'm joined by Captain RAGESHWARAN MANIAM. He's the head of Civil Defence Special Force Unit, better known as PASPA, the Disaster Management and Operation Division of APM. They're currently on site in Batang Kali. Cap, thank you very much for doing this to us, and also thank you very much to the team for working tirelessly to bring this to a close. Hopefully, it's not the close that we want, but we know now that we're just looking for one last survivor. I still use survivor because I always have hope. Captain, thank you very much for joining us. So now you're at the site. What was your thoughts or reaction when you first received news of the disaster? Can you just walk us through that, Cap?
Yeah, okay. Good afternoon. So I received a call on the 16th December around 2:30 a.m. in the morning from my Civil Defense Disaster Control Center. So when I received the call, so I alert my team and directed to move to do initial assessment on the site. This is the first team. So within 15 minutes, I alert my second team and third team to prepare all the equipment and move to the site. So I was very shocked because the number of the victims informed is around 92 victims trapped in the location. So this is a very quite big numbers. So when I arrived in the location, so my team is the first team arrived with the fire rescue department in the location. So we informed by the team and we get some short briefing. So regarding the victim alive and some buried in the ground. So we make a coordination plan because the structure of the ground is already damaged by the landslide. So we look up at the map and we plan the way how to reach the victim. So that is the first action that our Civil Defense Special Force do on the morning.
So, I mean, I'm going to work off the script. I know we've sent you some questions, but, you know, when I'm talking to you now, I feel differently about what's going on in my head. And I'd like to ask you, what did you feel at that time when this whole thing happened, you know, when you were told to be deployed and your team needed to get ready to go, and you got there and you heard 90 people are there. As a Malaysian, as a human being, what did you feel? Were you anxious? Were your thoughts running all over the place? What was it like?
So first of all, I'm very sad because I look at the victim. So the condition of the victim is very weak. So some are unconsciously, some are like a phobia. So many. So we are from special unit. We divide our two teams. So we cannot leave the victim that alive still in the ground. So we bring out as soon as possible the victim to the safe place. So in terms of our disaster plan, so we can call the red zone and green zone. So we bring out the victims who are alive from the red zone to the green zone to the safe place. So that is a very memorable moment for us because it's very sad situation on that time.
Right. I guess we're coming to the end of the year, and I want to talk about something which is a bit different but linked to what you're still doing. So most of us, like I told our guests before this, have gone through a horrible year with the floods, with disasters, with politicking, with just so much. Now, working on the ground, when something happens, we Malaysians come together, okay? Whether it's a flood or something, everyone pulls together and lends a hand. So unity is very important in working through something like this. Did you see that happening on the ground? You know, with all the different ministries, the different divisions, departments, and also volunteers. Did you see people of different races, faiths coming together to help, regardless of whatever, to make this a success or to make this operation a success?
Yeah, in terms of the operation-wise, so when come to operation, so all the ministry agencies will combine together and will do their part. So we following any disaster happen, we following our protocol SOP is called MKN 20. So all the agencies, respective agencies, do their role and responsibility. So not even the government team. So even though the NGOs, so other teams will give a hand, will support us in terms of other equipment supporting. So like some other agencies, some other NGOs will bring their boats. This is for I told that for flood disaster. So the collaboration of the interagency and also the NGO. So it's based on our discussion. Furthermore, so we will discuss what need to do and what help that we need for that time. So the supporting, the collaboration and the plan of the disaster management is very important on this time. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Captain, just one last question before you go, because you didn't quite answer that question. So with everyone working there, was it a problem with regards to what color you were, where you're from, all that. Did unity come into play? Did you see Malaysia come together at the site? Captain?
Yeah, hello?
Hello, yeah. So did you see unity happen when everyone was there helping at the site? Did you see people coming together?
Yeah, unity is happened, yeah. We coming together and we support each other.
Right. Thank you very much, Captain, and thank you for all the great work you guys are doing on the ground. That was Captain RAGESHWARAN Maniam, head of the Civil Defence Special Force Unit of PASPA, Disaster Management and Operation Division from APM. I'm off to another break. When we come back, we'll take you around the globe to find out what's happening internationally right here on The Brief. Stay with us.
Mak ingat tak masa kita susah dulu? Kena halau dari rumah sebab tak mampu bayar sewa. Sedih kan masa tu, Mak?
Tak apalah, Ros. Setiap ujian tu pasti ada hikmah di sebaliknya. Yang penting kita sabar.
Memang dari dulu lagi, impian Ros nak tengok Mak happy bila pindah rumah baru.
Mak dah selesa dah nyewa kat rumah flat kita tu. Lagipun rumah ni cantik, luas, mesti mahal.
Nanti bolehlah Mak masak dengan selesa kat rumah baru. Surau, ruang rekreasi, makin berbumbung lagi. Rumah ni ada 3 bilik tidur dengan 2 bilik air tau. Harap-harap Mak sukalah.
Wah, besarnya Ros rumah ni.
Welcome back and thanks for staying with us. We begin our international brief with this. Brazilian President-elect Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva announced a new set of future cabinet members ahead of his January 1st inauguration, including Vice President-elect Gerard as Minister of Development, Industry and Trade. In an event in the capital city of Brasilia, the President-elect unveiled new names that will be part of his coming cabinet, such as the new Minister of Racial Equality or the Human Rights one. Moving on, Chile's President Gabriel Boric announced his government will open an embassy in the Palestinian territories. Boric made the announcement at the annual Christmas tree lighting event attended by members of the Palestinian community in the Andean country. Boric showed his support for the Palestinian people when he asked not to normalize abuses and human rights violations in the territory during his speech at September's UN Assembly. U.S. President Joe Biden urged Americans on Thursday to cast aside partisan politics that have divided the nation and embrace the caring spirit of the holiday season. Here's Joe Biden.
This holiday season will drain the poison that has infected our politics and set us against one another. I hope this Christmas season marks a fresh start for our nation, because there's so much that unites us as Americans. So much more that unites us than divides us. So my hope this Christmas season is that we take a few moments of quiet reflection, find that stillness in the heart of Christmas. It's at the heart of Christmas. And really look at each other. Not as Democrats or Republicans, not as members of Team Red or Team Blue, but as who we really are, fellow Americans.
Joe Biden, President of the United States of America. In other news, about 200,000 holidaymakers will be affected at the upcoming Christmas weekend as rail workers in France will go ahead on a planned strike on Friday over the rising inflation and lowering purchase power. Due to the scheduled strike, France's national state-owned railway company, SNCF, announced that 1 out of 3 high-speed trains will be cancelled on Friday. As the upcoming strike coincides with the holiday travel season, SNCF expects about 200,000 out of 800,000 passengers to have their trips cancelled. And in Mexico, Mexicans enjoyed the staging of Christmas story of their own known pastarolas to start the countdown to Christmas Day. Elaborate costumes and mariachi music helped locals and foreigners to get into the Christmas spirit in Mexico City's Coyoacán Barrio with the annual Pastorela pageant. For half a century, famed pastorelas in the Latin American country have delivered a yearly dose of entertainment, retelling the story of the birth of Jesus with deeply rooted Mexican indigenous style and revolutionaries clothing, local music genres, political satire, and jokes on current affairs. And a quick peek on what's trending nationally on Twitter. Hashtag Sabah is trending. Some areas in the state of Sabah are expected to receive continuous rain. Residents in affected areas are advised to remain vigilant at all times. Met Malaysia has already put out a series of updates about big rains which involve several states. That wraps up this edition of The Brief at 3 p.m. Eleanor Abdullah speaks to more folks from the civil defense department to find out more about what's happening at Batang Kali and efforts to bring this to an end. I'm Gerard Ratnam. This has been The Brief on Friday right here on Bernama TV. Have a fantastic day ahead and stay with us for more updates.